Welcome to Canucks After Dark. Here are your hosts, Parker Hallowell and Clay Emo.
Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to Canucks After Dark here on Monday, November the 22nd. I think at the beginning of the season, we anticipated that in November, we'd be having a fun time talking about a team that's, middle of the pack maybe, and looking forward to the next, 4 or 5 months of fun, exciting hockey. But today we get to talk about sadness and coaching and the GM and the owner and all of this fun stuff. So I hope you guys are strapped in for a fun show. Clay, as always, my co-host, how are you doing this evening?
Parker, my friend, by the way, I love the hair. Can I say that right? I love it. Maybe I haven't seen your hair before. Are you usually wearing a hat, or is it your hair look different?
I usually just have it up.
Okay.
But now it's just fresh today.
Well, you look fresh. Not that I'm an expert on good haircuts, obviously. It's been rough. I must admit, my positivity has been tested a little bit. I'm still positive. I'm still hopeful, but it's been rough, man. I know we're going to talk about it for the next hour, but just give me like 5 seconds of relaxation and bliss here.
Yeah,
okay, I'm ready.
No, I saw that you had replied to I guess you were listening to Sportsnet today, and I saw your tweet saying that it looks pretty tough for the Canucks to make the playoffs. That's pretty negative for you. So that sort of really paints a picture of how things are going for the Canucks.
80 points in 63 games. That's all we need, man.
Yeah, they're on a 60-point pace. They're doing fine. They just have to go from a 60-point pace like 110-point pace. That's easy, right? You just have to get twice as good. So as always, we're going to give a recap sort of the last week. Only 3 games that happened since we last did a show. A 3-game homestand. And when we talked about this last week, really, as the Canucks, as they start to run out of time, they need to start winning more and more games on these stretches. And one of them was, looking at this week, it was, okay, well, they got to win 2 of them, right? And that was sort of where we were at. And I think we both predicted one. No, you predicted 1-1-1, I think. And I think I said 0-3.
So we were both wrong.
We were both wrong. Somewhere in the middle. The Canucks go 1-2 on this homestand. Not a very dramatic homestand when it comes to like fan dissatisfaction, like booing in the stands or anything, because all these games were pretty close, right? They were all fairly exciting. 1-goal games, basically, other than the first one, which was against Colorado anyways. So I don't think people are going to be too upset by a 2-goal loss. I guess, do you want to just get started and break these down?
Yeah, let's go chronologically. I like to do that. But Parker, I'm going to give you props. I actually think you said 1 and 2 because I remember saying to you, well, I'm going to go a tiny bit better and give them another point and go 1-1. I think so.
I'll take it.
Maybe I'm completely off. Who knows? Such a blur.
So the Canucks didn't play till Wednesday this week, was their first game of the week. And you're going to see the same thing this week. Canucks having another little 2-day break because they don't play until Wednesday again. But this game 4-2 against the Colorado Avalanche, and a fairly interesting one that was at least tight until it sort of fell apart in the third period. So Colorado opened the scoring in the first with a Rantanen goal. Then we had Connor Garland scoring in the second, and this was a stupidly nice goal where he just steps into a slap shot in the left circle to tie it. You have Tucker Poolman getting his first of the year's first in the last 2 years. And then Colorado scored 3 goals and the Canucks lost.
Yeah, this is the one where Quinn Hughes took that kind of not so smart penalty, right?
Yeah, he chased was it Girard he chased?
Girard,
he chased Girard down because he was angry on sort of a hit into the boards and the offensive zone. It was a pretty clean hit. They're not calling that, late in a 1-goal game because the rule book doesn't matter. It's about game management. But that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, they, he goes down, takes a dumb penalty, and then Colorado capitalizes. They score 2 goals early in the third period, only 53 seconds apart. And that just kind of sealed it. Canucks tried to come back late, and they just couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, you kind of hinted at it earlier, Parker. Of the 3 games, this is probably the one where you would say the Canucks would probably have the least chance of winning. When you look at when you look at, forget the actual standings, the quality of opposition. I know Winnipeg is way higher than, so go figure, right? We beat the team that's higher in the standings. I know they're tired. We'll get to that. But yeah, this was the one where you thought maybe the Canucks might struggle a little bit. And yeah, they really had no match for the skill of Makar and Rantanen. And that was without McKinnon, right?
Yeah, it was without McKinnon. And I do want to, give some props to so the second period, the Canucks were great, right? In this game, I think the shots were like 15-7 in the second period. They were all over them. And they just couldn't score enough goals, right? They scored 2 goals on 34 shots. And again, tell me if you heard this one before. Canucks power play goes 0 for 3. Avalanche goes 3 for 5. So they score all 3 of their goals other than the one with 11 seconds left on the man advantage. As special teams, killed the Canucks again. It was a game that was winnable against, the Avalanche, and you take those. If you can pull it a win and you give yourself an opportunity to win, you have to seize it when you can. But the penalty kill killed them once again.
Yeah, but at least here's one positive. That's the last time the Canucks have given up a power play goal.
That is true. So this game was after this game, there was a stat. So you say, they went 2 games without allowing a power play goal. Well, this was the first time the Vancouver Canucks had allowed power play goals in 10 straight games since 2009. 10 straight games allowing power play goals, and lots of them multiple power play goals. So the penalty kill going 2 for 5. And there were some other things that frustrated me in this first game. The Canucks have these stretches where they don't get shots. And it happened last night, and we'll talk about that when we get to that game. But the Canucks in the first period had a shot just over a minute into the game, and they didn't get another shot for about 10.5 minutes in the first period. And they start to come alive at the end of the period. They had like 12 shots at the end of the first period, but it's something that's crazy to me because at the end of the third, the Canucks go 8.5 minutes without a shot again. They get 5 shots in the third period while they're down a goal to the Colorado Avalanche. Like there's just no fight. There's no pushback. And that was, I think, the most disappointing thing about that game.
A dump in from center, as long as it hits the goalie, that counts as a shot, right?
It does. Yes.
So you're telling me in 8.5 minutes in a third period in a game where you're literally fighting for your job and your life, and they couldn't put a puck on the goalie?
Nope. Couldn't even get it close, apparently. So that's the first game that we want to break down. And then the Canucks win a game 2 nights later. On Friday, the Canucks take on Winnipeg, a team that has been notoriously impossible for them to beat. Yes. But they come out and they get the job done. And if I pull up my notes for this one, as I like to do, so this game starts off with an Oliver Ekman-Larsson goal. About 14 minutes in, shot from the point, gets through, sort of sneaks through Comrie to make it 1-0. But the Canucks weren't the better team in this game, that especially not in the first period. We get a goal from Kyle Burrows, which was pretty sweet. And then Nick Ehlers scores for Winnipeg. Connor Garland scores for the Canucks. And I think that was the one with the shot, not the game before. I think I got it mixed up. And then Winnipeg scored late, but it wasn't enough. And the Canucks held on in this one.
Yeah, the Garland one was nice. That was the one where Chase on, as much as we rag on Chase on, that was a beautiful pass from the corner, actually, from the bottom corner out to Garland. It was nice to see Burrows get his first career NHL goal. And it was nice that Ekman-Larsson and Garland's goals were on the power play. I know we'll get to that. So overall, even though Winnipeg was higher in the standings, they had just come off a pretty deflating but exciting loss against Edmonton the night before that went to, I think, overtime or shootout. So this was a tired team that played the night before. So you expect the Canucks to win. Kind of the same situation as last night, different result. But yeah, this one was good. The Canucks, they didn't dominate the game, as you said. In fact, Winnipeg started strong, actually. But it was nice to see, at least at this point, they'd even out their homestand at 1-1.
Yeah, and so my pluses for this game was the Canucks scored in their first 2 power plays, right? They went 2 for 3 on the power play, which was big for them. It's the reason that they won, most likely. But the bigger reason is that they didn't allow a power play goal against, because they didn't take a penalty in this game. I think they might have had one that was coincidental.
Yes.
But obviously that doesn't matter. It was 4-on-4. But the Canucks go without taking a single penalty in this game. And it's enough to keep them in it. Cause if they took one, they were allowing a goal.
Yeah.
But the Canucks able to hang on. Shots in this one were 39-29 for Winnipeg. Winnipeg was sort of piling it on, and especially in the last like 2 minutes of this game, the Canucks were really on their heels. And Winnipeg, it looked like they were going to claw it back, but the Canucks were able to survive that push.
Yeah, that not to dwell on the negatives. The only goal I didn't like, the Nick Ehlers one, he did a really nice move, but Quinn Hughes, I don't know what he was doing. He kind of followed Ehlers to the boards and then realized, oh shit, dang, I better cover this guy. And then he wasn't fast nor strong enough to fight Ehlers off the puck.
Yeah, he just got beat. And Nick Ehlers is a heck of a player. He looked great that night, but Canucks pull that one out. And then we get the fun game, the most fun game of the homestand, which was last night. And it's Chicago beating the Canucks 1-0. And everything was lined up for the Canucks to win this game. Chicago is bad. Chicago is coming off of a back-to-back game that was like 22 hours before. I think it was 7 o'clock the night before, maybe 6 o'clock the night before. And this game was at 5 o'clock local time. So it was one of those games where it was just like, it was, and Thomas Drance uses this term, sort of a scheduled loss, right? It's you get a couple of those a year where you're on the road, sort of end of a road trip, back-to-back games. They're really tough to win. And the Vancouver Canucks were the much better team last night. And it wasn't that close. Shots in this game ended up being 40-24, but only one goal being scored by Brandon Hagel, of all people. And I think in the first game that the Canucks played against the Blackhawks, Hagel was also like really noticeable out there.
Yeah, his name rings a bell for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about him. I think I can actually pull up my notes from the previous time. And I'm just going to search for Hagel.
Yeah, while you're doing that,
I gave him my game puck last time they played.
So that's why he was that good. Well, and and the one goal, and we can talk about the goals because there's only one of them. It was tough because not only, that one was right in front of me, is because Myers was not only screening Demko, but he did both. He screened Demko and he didn't tie up Hagel's stick. So you want him to do one or the other, right? Either not screen Demko or tie up the guy. And unfortunately, that was the only goal of the entire game, despite some really good chances and a bunch of iron from the Canucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you look at special teams. Canucks killed all 3 penalties, but they didn't score on their 3 power play chances.
Yeah. Although it looked dangerous on some of them.
They did. They actually looked pretty good. My biggest takeaways from this game, Podkolzin is awesome. He really upped his stock. They put him out there with Garland and Pettersson at one point. And that unit looked really dangerous and just really fun. So I suspect we'll see that coming back in the near future.
I hope so.
Demko was great. 23-24. You can't complain too much there. The team didn't score in front of him. Canucks had 30 shots in the first 2 periods of this game. They were all over him. But there were some minuses, right? The posts, I think they shrunk the nets a little bit because clearly they weren't regulation. The Canucks hit like 6 posts in this game. I think Travis Hamonic played pretty bad. And then they went I mentioned earlier that sort of these stretches that they go on without any shots. This game, to start the third period, they didn't get their first shot on goal for 7 minutes. Keep in mind, they were down a goal for the last 3 minutes of that stretch. And then they get 2 quick shots on net. And then they go another 9.5 minutes without a shot on goal. So basically from the 0 to 7 minute mark, and then like the 8 to 17 minute mark, the Canucks didn't have shots. They're down a goal and they didn't get a shot from a forward in the third period until there was like 3 minutes left in the game.
Playing against a team that had played less than 24 hours prior.
Yeah, and not a good team, right? A team that started out the season with 9 losses, fired their coach, won a handful of games after that, and are being backstopped by an excellent goalie. But if you go that long without testing a goalie, you're not going to score any goals.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, and those 10 minutes that you talked about, Parker, those first 7 or 8 minutes in the third, that's when Chicago scored theirs, and in essence, it killed the Canucks. Well, no, you should be able to score at least one or at least press for one. So it was an automatic loss, but that's exactly when they had their lull is when Chicago scored. So, and it's just one of those. I don't know what it felt like when you're watching it, but it just seemed like as the game went on, maybe Fleury is going to shut us out. It just had that vibe to it.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I think I tweeted out, if the Canucks, this was at 6:35, so this would be like second intermission.
Yeah.
I said if the Canucks lose a game that they're up 30-13 in shots after 2 periods, that would be on brand.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. They it was 0-0 at that point, but I knew. I mean, I just knew that it was over. The Canucks
Yeah.
weren't going to be the team that scored because
Yeah.
it's just the way she goes.
I will say that PD, Garland, Podkolzin line. So Green went to it once in the first period, then went back to it in second period. And that's when it was on my side of the ice. That's when they had that crazy 1 minute shift where
Yeah.
PD and Garland went back and forth, give and go about 4 times while Podkolzin snuck into the slot. That was nice. Myers actually had a couple bombs that almost went in. That was a pretty fun shift. It was really fun, actually.
Yeah, it was super fun to watch, especially on the broadcast because you could hear sort of the excitement build. Right, Shorthouse is so good at that of parlaying the feel of the game into his voice, where he just that excitement builds in his voice. And you just know something's going to happen, and it was really excellent, really fun to watch. And yeah, I can't believe they didn't go back to it with how dangerous it looked, especially for that one stretch.
What's this I heard? I was there. You think I'd be paying better attention. Did Chason play over PD for a portion of the last power play of the game or something with a couple minutes left?
I didn't notice. I think Chason might have been out there first, and then Pettersson came on after. But Pettersson was definitely out there because they were trying to run it through Pettersson with like a minute and a half left. They were just trying to feed him the one timer over and over again. And I had some people.
Garland trying to hide.
Yeah, he was sneaking in there at the back post. I had some people complaining in my post game chat yesterday about how, why are they running everything through Pettersson on this, last 2 minutes? Like, aren't there more dangerous options? And I don't think so. I think Pettersson, even though he has been struggling, I think he's still the most dangerous shot option from that side. And I mean, we saw the one shot that just handcuffed Fleury completely that he just got enough of, and then the other one that he got the toe down on. I mean, those are close to going in. It was a goalie that wasn't going to get beat.
You play defense, right?
Sometimes.
Okay. No,
Usually,
sorry. Positionally, do you play defense or forward?
I play forward most of the time, but I used to play defense.
Okay, but at least you play hockey, you understand it. Tell me, because the old debate, especially on a power play, some would say when I was watching last night, I had a good view. Chicago was so good at blocking all the lanes, right? So it's very easy for us to yell, shoot, shoot, shoot. And we think that they're being too patient. But honestly, if you shoot it wrong and they do a really good block, it's gone the other way and they empty netter and you're done, right? Versus hammering away at the puck, getting a deflection, getting it to the net, maybe it going off of someone and hurting them. Like, where do you come out on that? I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle, but where do you come out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a line, right? At some point when you're down a goal with 40 seconds left or whatever, at some point you got to try to get a puck on net.
Yeah.
You can't go for the perfect shot, but once you get a small window, even if it's not perfect, but it's like a lane just to get the puck on net, especially that late, you have 6 offensive guys out there. You have 2 guys just standing in front of the net. Guys who are, pretty good at, getting, garbage goals if they need to. So at that point, I think while using Pettersson is a great option, and because that lane did seem to be open more so, and he does have a great shot, I would have been fine seeing, Quinn Hughes just throwing a wrister from the point if he had a lane to get it through, right? Just for the chance of, maybe it takes a weird bounce or a weird tip, or it just Fleury can't handle it, and you have a chance to sort of bang home a rebound or something like that. I think, pucks on net is never a bad option at that point in the game.
Yeah. And we've seen Hughes score that way before. His shot's not the hardest, but he's smart and he is able to get it through. But yeah, they did that back and forth about 3 or 4 times, right? Trying to draw the defender, get it back to PD on the circle, and then kaboom.
Yeah, it can be tough to get that lane, especially with the extra guy out, because there's you're literally talking about 6 guys lined up sometimes between the shooter and the net. So sure, maybe it's tough to get that through and it's a bad idea, but I mean, Fleury's not going to see it right at that point. So if you can sort of see a gap to get it through and you can put it there, then it does help. But I can definitely see why he would be second guessing that shot there.
What's wrong with Besser, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. He just does it. He looks sort of a step behind. He's not. He just a little bit hesitant. I don't have a real diagnosis, I guess. But I mean, we saw last night he had one shot on net in a game where the team had 40. You'd be expecting Besser to have like 4 or 5 at least, right?
Yeah.
Considering that's his bread and butter, that's his best ability. I mean, if you look at the time on ice, he was, I think, 5th among forwards. So not sort of as high as you expect him to be. He was behind Pettersson, Horvat, Miller, and Garland, all of them by at least 3 minutes, basically. Besser played 16-20 last night.
Okay. But when Garland has 6 shots on goal and PD has 5, you're right, Parker. Besser's got to have more than 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have Horvat had 3, Miller had 4. Pearson had 3, Podkolzin had 2, right? Where you guys are putting pucks on
I
it.
had 3. Yeah, I'm not even playing.
You might as well, for sure.
That's tough. I don't know if it's it was rumored to be an ankle, right, in the preseason, or maybe it goes back to the off season. It's tough because I like him and we want him to do well, and we got this fat $7.5 qualifying offer we have to think about. You want him to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. We always want the best for our players. But at this point, I mean, does Brock Besser firing on all cylinders fix the team? No. Does Elias Pettersson firing on all cylinders fix the team? No. If both of them do, and I mean, Horvat's been getting a lot of flack the last couple of days based on his play. I mean, he doesn't have a point in, I think, 6 games, which is, not great for a guy who, is supposed to be one of your better goal scorers, right? Going 6 games without a goal. The team loses 4 of them, I think, or did they lose 5 of them? I think they lost 5 of them. Yeah. It's just not good.
Yeah, they've lost 6 of the last. Yeah, Bo, he's good when he's rushing the net. Sometimes predictable, right? He loves that outside in move or inside out, whatever it is. And I noticed Parker too. He likes to try and do that quick wrist shot, but I think he could use his teammates a little bit more. Maybe he's trying hard because he wants so badly to lead and to be a difference maker. But yeah, his offense is completely dried up for sure.
Yeah, he's a very streaky player, and he always has been, right? I mean, he goes on those runs, like the running against St. Louis, where he was just, dominant in the playoffs. But I mean, you look at his last 6 games. So he doesn't have a point in 7 games now, but his last 6 games, he's been a minus. I know plus minus isn't a great stat, but he's been a minus in all 6 of these last games. -1 against Colorado, -2 against Vegas, and then -1 the last 4 games.
Yikes.
As well.
Yikes. Yeah. By the way, speaking of plus minus, did you see that Quinn Hughes has sneakily had a pretty good year plus minus wise?
Yeah, I think analytically he's been really good as well. By most metrics.
Right.
Yeah, he's had a good season so far, but it's just it just hasn't been enough.
Wow. So what was good about last night's game then for you, for anything aside from that PD, Podkolzin, Garland?
Yeah, I mean, they were the better team last night. And I think that's something but again, they should have been the better team, right? As we said, Blackhawks coming off of a back-to-back. Blackhawks are not good. It was a game that the Canucks should have won. They should have been the better team, and they met that sort of bare minimum. They just also didn't win the game, which is also sort of the bare minimum.
Can we talk about big picture? Not like super big picture, but at least the homestand. Is that okay?
Sure.
Real quick. Yeah.
So the Canucks go 1-2.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's literally the description of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Sure, they played a bit better, but if you're talking, and this is what I want to get to, Parker, the Canucks keep making these bold declarations. We'll see how we do on the road trip, right? That one with Colorado and Vegas. Oh, we'll see how we do on this homestand. Well, guess what? We've actually lost ground by going 1-2. Now we'll see how we do on this 5-game road. Well, how many times are you going to see what happens before you actually do something?
Yeah, it's this weird sort of treading water thing that they're doing where the Heat really picked up during that 5-game losing streak, but then they kept a couple of them close and they weren't like super bad losses at the end. And like, okay, well then now we'll focus on the homestand because the road trip was bad. They lost the Heat turned up. Now we'll look at the homestand. Well, the homestand wasn't terrible. I mean, they beat the Jets. They were the better team against Chicago. That's not bad enough to fire people, is it? Now we go to this road trip, right? And it's like, well, if the Canucks go, how long is the road trip? 6 games? 7 games?
5.
Oh, the Canucks go 2-3 on the road trip. That's not that's not terrible, right? But they slowly lose ground, or even if they go 3-2 on their road trip, right?
Yeah.
That's not enough to make any impact on the standings, right? They will be in the exact same place they were, probably the exact same amount of points back, just with less games left to play.
Yeah.
So anything less than 4-1 is not good enough at this point.
Yeah, they have to start stringing some wins together. I heard have they even won consecutive games once this year yet?
They might have early in the
Yeah.
season, but I mean, they only won 6 games.
Yeah,
so
we only have
probably
6 to
not.
choose from.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I
Man.
don't want to spend time looking it up, but I don't think they have.
No, I think we remembered, right? Because I don't remember us ever saying
They did.
but
They
did?
beat the Blackhawks on October
In Seattle,
21st
right?
and the Kraken on the 23rd.
Okay.
And then they lost 3 in a row.
We beat the Blackhawks already? What was the score of that one? I can't
4-1.
remember. Nice.
Yeah.
Too bad
And
that
that
was
was
last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so if we talk about the road trip coming up, right? The Canucks have Pittsburgh on Wednesday. That's going to be
Yep.
tough.
Yep.
It just is. Pittsburgh is still Pittsburgh. They might not be the team they once were. Where are they in the standings right now? They're 8-6-4, so sort of middle of the pack in the Metro. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. They might play tomorrow. I don't know if they're on a back-to-back or not. No, they played tonight. They beat the Jets today.
Oh.
And so they return home, take on Vancouver on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see the Canucks winning this game?
I can't say with a lot of confidence, no.
No. Yeah. I mean, maybe like a 30% chance.
Yeah.
And then they have, let me go back a little bit.
Columbus, who's better?
And they have Columbus, which, that's going to be a hard game on Friday.
Yeah.
And then they have Boston, which is going to be a hard game on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then they have Montreal and Ottawa, which should both be winnable. But I mean, we're talking about winnable as in because Montreal is bad, but Montreal is not that much worse than the Canucks, right? They have one less win.
But they are worse. Technically, there's only 3 or 4 teams worse than us, and those are 2 of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at it and you say, oh, wow. So if the Canucks lose to Pittsburgh, lose to Columbus, lose to Boston, win the last 2, they go 2-3. Well, that's not good enough. Let's say they sneak out a win against Columbus and, they go 3-2, but that's still, we're just treading water at this point.
Yes. It's Parker. I was thinking about this as I was thinking about our show tonight. I can't believe we are not even a quarter way through the season and we're already writing the season off. That's just so upsetting, honestly.
Yeah. And
we're not even at the 20 game mark.
Yeah. And we can talk all we want about, oh, well, we're still, we're not even at the 20 game mark, right? There's still 3/4 of the season left. They can turn it around, but
yeah,
it doesn't happen very often. We don't see teams turn it around from this far back because you have to, if you want to hit that 94-point marker, 95-point marker, you have to go on like 110, 120 point pace for the rest of the season. You have to play the last 60 games of the season phenomenally. You have to win like 38 of them. It's just not really feasible for a team that has started out 6-11-2, has allowed 16 more goals than they've scored, and can't kill a penalty to save their lives.
Yeah. And Austin, respectfully, I've seen a lot of people bring up the 2019 St. Louis Blues, and I get that because that's a very recent example against a team. But
give me another example.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
right? Exactly.
I guess that's your point. Right?
It's an outlier, right? Like it's outliers happen. Sure, the Canucks could do it. The Athletic right now has them at a 4% chance of making the playoffs. That's not 0, right? They could. They have a 1 in 25 chance statistically of pulling it off. But from what you've seen from this team, they're not one piece away. They're not, they're not a coaching change away, most likely from at least, 19 games in, but not this late, right? Maybe 8 games ago, but more losses pile up and suddenly, you have to start winning more games. And you need a real turnaround.
And that's the crazy thing. So as positive as I am and want to be and purport to be, when I hear you say, Parker, we still have 63 games left. We still have 3/4 of the season. On one hand, yes, that's a lot of time, but that that further cements our point is I can't believe that we're already talking about this with still 63 games left. That means we got to a bad point so quickly. It's almost you wouldn't be able to. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's the same thing that happened to the Canucks last year, right?
Yeah.
Just on a tighter time scale, right? Last season was a 56 game season, but like 15 games in, the Canucks had only won a handful, and we're looking at, okay, well, there's just, even though they were statistically very unlucky in February of last season, like it wasn't that they were playing terribly, they weren't playing great. But I think analytically, like their expected goals percentage was close to 50 and they were at like 30 or something of actual goals. Like they were getting super unlucky last year, but it was enough to really just tank the team. Right.
Yeah.
I think they, you win like 3 of your first 11 games and you're just out of it. Right. Like it's just, it comes up on you really quick.
Wow. I know someone brought up to me, I think it was Justin brought up to me that they won 9 out of 11 last March. So let's say they do that right now. Let's say they won 9 out of 11. They'd be 15, 13 and 2, right? Yeah. You had 9 wins, 2 losses. So 15, 13 and 2, that's 32 points in 15, 13 in 30 games. That's still not playoff. So even
it wouldn't, it wouldn't put them in a playoff spot, but it would put them on track to at least compete for one, right?
Okay.
They would be a lot more, they would have a lot better chance. But what do you think's more likely? They win 9 of the next 11 or they lose 9 of the next 11?
Well, I hate to say the latter. I know it's not the former, but that's the whole point. If they go in the middle, 5 or 6 out of 11, that doesn't get them.
Doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Now I'm sad, man.
Yeah, it's hard to have.
What did you call this? The Canucks are cursed.
The Canucks are cursed, and I think the thumbnail was just, I said 6 wins, 13 losses. The team is cursed was the thumbnail as well. Yeah, it is rough sledding, and because of all this, the Canucks are making headlines around the NHL. Which is crazy because usually like no one really focuses on the Canucks that much, right? Because people on the East Coast are asleep by the time the Canucks are playing. And, the Canucks don't really make national news all that much, right? There's the occasional Elliot Friedman piece and that's kind of it. But we have people like Tim from Tim and Friends on Sportsnet, nationally broadcast, coming out and saying that they need to fire Jim Benning. We have Dom Lucian at The Athletic putting out an article and retweeting this article a lot. Like he's pushing it a lot on his Twitter. Saying that it's time for the Canucks to break up with Jim Benning. It is around the NHL. People are saying that it's time. It's not just Canucks fans like it has been, at least a subset of them for the last few years. It feels like it has to be a matter of time.
Yeah. And you mentioned Tim and Dom Lucian, and then of course, and you mentioned Elliot Friedman almost in passing, but we know that he is so connected, so influential. And honestly, Parker, I hear him 3 times a day now because whenever I'm late for work, I hear him at 9 o'clock when him and Jeff Merrick are doing their thing. Then I hear him on Donnie and Dolly, right? And then sometimes they have him on and he's saying, yeah, you're right. Him among others are saying there's a lot of chatter right now that maybe everyone's kind of aligning themselves to, they're kind of picking sides and they're trying to make sure that their job is safe, or maybe it's something in the locker room. There's just so many what ifs. And meanwhile,
it's like Survivor. Why is this happening? Why are the Canucks turning into a reality TV show where it's like, man, heads are going to roll. I better not be on the side of those guys, right? I got to build an alliance with the people who are going to stick around through all this.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that an option? Like, why is that?
That's a great analogy. Survivor. Yeah.
Like, is this team, like, is the people making the decision so disconnected from what's actually going on that people picking a side in the organization is going to be enough for them to stay on board? I think that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure because I didn't ask you before if you have a banner for this or if we're going to talk about it. Have you heard now this thought about bringing in a president, someone who's above Jim Benning, someone to replace the Trevor Linden that hasn't replaced in the last few years, and at least kick the can down the road a little bit, where you have the president come in, analyze everything, and then decide what he's going to do with his GM and with his coach. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the dynamic that ownership is looking for, right? We've heard chatter for so long that Jim Benning is sort of in his pocket to the point where, he'll just, Aquilini has a lot of control over decisions because Jim Benning will sort of do whatever he's told. If that's the case, why would Francesco hire someone to get in between them, right? I don't. I feel like it goes because I think it's what the people want, right? The people want sort of an unbiased president to go into the middle and say, "Okay, Francesco and ownership as a whole, I get the final say now, right? I oversee everything,
Yeah.
and I am doing what's best for the team, and
Yeah.
that's final, right?" But based on the way that this group has operated in the past and what they've shown us, right? I mean, they've shown us who they are for the last, 6, 7, 8 years, right? At some point, we should believe what they're showing us, and it's that that they want the control, and there's a reason that they didn't hire a president after Linden was amicably departed.
Yeah.
So
Real amicable.
I would like it. I just
Yeah.
don't see it happening.
What's been the mood like in your post-game live streams?
Frustration and just kind of being tired of telling the same story.
Yeah.
Because I feel like after every game, it's like, okay, well, what else can I say? The penalty kill allowed 3 goals, and the Canucks didn't play very good, and they allowed 38 shots, and Demko was fine, and Pettersson and Besser weren't great again. Garland was really good. Puck Colson's looking fine. I mean, I've just described the last 12 games basically, except for the wins, and it feels like feels like I'm a broken record at this point.
I know. I know we talked about this either last show or 2 shows ago, how it's just more fun. You look forward to doing a stream or a video or a vlog when the Canucks are winning. It's just, there's more to talk about. There's more positive things to talk about. People want to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about that Winnipeg game earlier, and it was a Friday night. Was that game at 7:00 or at 5:00? Is that an early one?
It was here. No, it was 7.
7? Okay.
Yep.
That was a game that if I wasn't doing a post-game show, I don't think I would have watched it. For the first time, that was a feeling that I had going into that
That's
game on
huge.
Friday night. That was the first time that I was like, if I didn't feel obligated to do this, I don't think I would. Like, I think I would have, called up a friend and done something, or just hung out at home and taken it easy. And it was the game they won, and it was a fun post-game show. But that was the first time, this season that I've had that feeling. I had that feeling last year, of course, in the sort of death march as we've had in the past. And, but it was the first time that I felt that so far this year.
That Winnipeg one was interesting because I brought a friend who's from here who now works in Winnipeg, but happened to be here visiting his father. So I said, well, fine, I'm going to bring you the game. It's perfect. It's Winnipeg and Vancouver. He cheered for Vancouver. The Canucks won, but he was saying some interesting things. Like he shares seasons for the Winnipeg Jets. He actually said that the crowd, more to cheer about in Winnipeg. He also referenced the fact that Vancouver can never win when they play in Winnipeg. You know that too. You mentioned that. But he also said that our game presentation was actually better here than in Winnipeg. There's more stuff to keep the fans engaged. And I bring that up, Parker,
Crazy P.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because he actually got fired bending out of his section. You saw the, I saw
the video. Yeah.
Anyways, what my whole point is, even in the arena, they're going to start to get a little more restless. We've heard a couple I've experienced a couple fire bending chants that are quickly muted by the organist or the DJ, but still, who knows if they don't do well over the next 5 games on the road, who knows what they're going to come back to. Yeah.
And it really came down to how those games went, right? I mean, we looked at the first game, the Canucks lost by 1, but they were in it the whole game, and they lost by 2, but there was a goal with 10 seconds left.
Sure.
They beat Winnipeg. And then last night they lost 1-0, but they outplayed Chicago, and it was a 1-goal game the whole time, and it was at least exciting. So there wasn't much opportunity, right? If one of these games had been, 3-0 in the second period, I mean, then all bets are off, right? And I think the Canucks got lucky with how these last 3 games went,
right?
In that regard. But, I mean, game presentation can only do so much. I think their presentation is pretty good. It has definitely improved over the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, it can only go so far.
When's your next one? Do you have plans?
To go to one?
Yeah.
I just check every once in a while and see how cheap they are. If it hits like $20, then I'm like, okay, well, I might as well.
Right.
Even if I'm just there to hang out and not care as much about the hockey at some point. But I'm just kind of casually looking.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do we want to go to sort of the bigger news rumors that dropped today?
Yeah, let's go to that.
Okay, let's see if I can pull up the article. The first article, I believe, came from the province, had it first.
Ben Kuzma.
Ben Kuzma.
Yeah.
And this was apparently the Minnesota Wild have been making some phone calls about JT Miller, which is kind of surprising. You think Minnesota Wild, you think Brock Besser, right? Like that, he's from Minnesota, he's kind of struggling here and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
there's been discussions among Canucks fans for a while about if they're going to trade somebody, JT Miller probably makes the most sense from a long-term perspective, right? What we have seen from the Canucks this year is that they're not ready to compete, clearly. So are they going to be ready next year? I mean, I don't want to get into that too much, but JT Miller is the oldest of sort of the core group at this point. Maybe if you exclude Ekman Larson. But for a competitive team, he's an excellent piece. He's on a cheap contract next year too.
Yes.
But for a team that's not in it, maybe they can try to pull something. So the rumor seems to be, if JT Miller were to be traded to Minnesota, that the main piece in return would be Kevin Fiala. It would be Kevin Fiala plus, whether that's they mentioned on the Ben Kuzma mentioned maybe a second, maybe another player like a Jordan Greenway. I mean, what's your first reaction to something like this?
Yeah, and it echoes what a lot of people are saying in the chat. You trade him away, and you're trading away right now. You can argue if he's the best player, but he's the most productive player. Objectively, he's leading the team in points. And
he's like 10th in the NHL.
Yeah, and even JT Miller says he's not even playing well, so that's pretty honest of him. So on one hand, you say, okay, why would you do that? Because now you're basically struggling to create offense. On the other hand, if you don't see him in your plans, and you're right, I was just thinking about something I was going to say, but I'll get to that. So you're right when you say when you decide on personnel issues, you don't just think short-term next season. You think when you are competitive, when you're at your best, does this player figure to be part of that? And you're right, Parker. If they're not going to be at their best for another 2 or 3 years, JT will be whatever, 32, 33. Who knows what his next contract is going to be? He's going to want security. He's going to get a raise over his 5.25. Does that make sense for the Canucks of where they are in their growth? So, I like Fiala. Maybe I don't like him as much as some other people. I mean, I like him more than some other people. But and the other thing I was going to say is we've seen the draft 2 years ago was so boring because we didn't have a pick until the third round. Last year, we didn't have a pick until the second round, Klimovich. So do you get a first for Miller? Well, obviously it depends on what else is coming back. But I could see the Canucks trying to recoup some capital for sure if they don't think he's in their plans long term.
Yeah, and I mean Fiala's struggled this year too.
Yeah.
He's been excellent. I mean, we saw him in the bubble, right? And he was a real pain to the Canucks in those 4 games that they played. But he was really good. He had 3 goals and an assist in those 4 games. Yeah. But if you look at his stats the last couple of years, right? If we go back to like 2017-18, he had 23 goals, 48 points in 80 games. The year after, he had 32 points in 64. If we look at 2019-20, the shortened season, in 64 games, he had 23 goals, 31 assists. So about a 30-goal pace.
Wow.
Last year, the shortened season, again, 50 games, 20 goals, 20 assists. So like a 35-goal pace and like a 70-point pace, maybe a 65-point pace. But this year, 3 goals and 9 assists in 18 games, right? A real drop-off. Now, so that could be, the Wild thinking, maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe there's so much here because you have to look at how does trading JT Miller impact the locker room, the other big, the big contracts coming up, and all this stuff. How would bringing Kevin Fiala affect the team? Will Kevin Fiala return to that, 30-goal pace self where he'd be a real genuine core piece of the team, right? Does giving up on this season maybe irk someone like Bo Horvat, who is, getting up there in age already, right? He's been on the team. He got drafted 8 years ago or whatever it was. Like, where there's so many little nuances to this idea.
Yeah. So just forget about the trade talk, just objectively, Do you like Miller's passion, his F bombs per 60, the way he kind of wears his heart on his sleeve? Do you like that?
I don't dislike it.
Okay.
I don't think I like it, as in like I don't think it helps, but I also don't think it hurts as much as some people make it out to.
Right.
Um, I think I mean, he's clearly passionate and he's clearly one of the best players on the team, right? It's not like he's doing this and putting
Sucking.
up, 22 points a year, right? We're talking about a guy who is tied for 10th in the NHL in points. Well, he's a point a game player, and
Yes.
he's the only one on the team of that sort of top three that's really
Yeah.
doing anything right now, right? He has the right to be frustrated. I would be too. I
Yeah.
am. But I mean that, a player like that has a lot of value. And I think, if the Canucks were to make this move, Fiala is not enough, right? I mean, he's really
Correct.
good, but we're
Correct.
talking about a player who's struggled so far this season, right? 12 points in 18 games, well below his pace. There's risk to that, right? Does he not bounce back to that former 70-point pace player? So the Canucks would be assuming some risk there. And to account for that risk, you'd want something good in return, whether that's a first round pick, but I don't think that gets it done. I don't think Minnesota's parting with a first.
Right.
Kuzma says in his article that Matthew Boldy, who the Canucks were rumored to be interested in the 2019 draft.
Yeah.
He's a no-go. Like, he's just off the board. They're not going to trade him. So if it's like Fiala in a second, I mean, second round picks I don't care that much about a second round pick. Look, Canucks had some good luck with second round picks. Hoglander, obviously,
Yeah.
Demko, Klimovich looks like he could be one of those people.
Yeah.
But it's a lottery ticket, right? I mean, like, it's something like 30% of second round picks like play a meaningful amount of games. Is Fiala and a 30% chance at a decent player good enough return?
No. Fiala and a decent player? Well, I guess it depends on how Fiala. That's an easy answer, but I guess it depends on how well Fiala turns out.
Yeah. And there's another wrinkle to it, right? Fiala is making $5.1 million this year.
Yeah.
But his contract's up. He's an RFA after this season. So that would be another sort of piece to it, right? Would they have like an extension worked out beforehand?
Yeah.
Would they, just kick it down the road and then do it later? I don't know what his QO would be. It's a 1-year contract, so it's on like the current rules. So it's probably around 5.1 million.
Yeah.
So it's there's just so much nuance to this
It's complicated.
it's hard to really consider.
Okay, one last Miller question, because I know a lot of people are talking about it. Do you think, and we don't know, that there's a fracture in the locker room? Leadership wise.
We've heard there is. Again, I don't know how much I put into that, how much stock I put into that, but we have heard that that there is there is a break in there somewhere. And I mean, from everything we've seen on the ice, it's hard to disagree with that possibility. Right? There's clearly some sort of disconnect with this team, that something isn't clicking. Now, do you think maybe a coach could fix that, right? Because what's more valuable to you, a player like JT Miller or a coach, right? A coach who's already on the hot seat. I'd probably go with JT Miller.
Player, yes.
So it is a really, really tough thing to think about there.
Do you have any more banners, or are we going to get to the questions in a second?
The only other banners I have was that playoff chances were 4%, which we went over already, and your face is completely frozen.
Oh, great!
But you're sounding fine, so that's
as long as the audio is fine. Yeah, people probably happy they don't have to look at my face. Okay.
And there was the 32 Thoughts podcast that dropped today that the Canucks were a big part of. But a lot of it is just sort of like, there's tension within the organization. Everyone's looking around. This is sort of that factions thing that you were talking about. How some people were like making alliances and all this weird stuff. And he did say one thing that was interesting, is chances are a new hire will already be chosen before a move is made. Which means, are they interviewing people? He said the Canucks aren't the only one doing this right now in the NHL. So Are they, doing sort of hidden interviews on the side? And we saw Francesco having dinner with Pedersen the other night. It's there's a lot to think about.
Okay, so I'll ask you this then before we get to our fine viewers. If I give you 5 choices, Parker, of what's the next big shoe to drop or the next big decision, and I'll give you the 5 choices of hire president, fire GM, fire coach, make a trade, or absolutely nothing. Again, all 5 levels.
Is this what I want or what's most likely?
What do you think is going to happen? President, GM, coach, player thing, or absolutely nothing? What do you think is going to happen?
If this homestand or if this road trip goes decently, if they go like 2-3, and I say decently in air quotes, then trade would be my bet. If this homestand goes poorly and they say go like 1-4, but they lose a couple of those games bad, then I say coach probably drops first. Even though I would like it to be GM. And just because I just think Benning and Francesco are just so tight, which stresses me out.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm kind of with you. I want it to be, I don't want Benning from a personal side when he loses a job, but I want the GM to go before the coach for sure. But you're right. If the Canucks come back 0-5, 1-4, gosh, how can you not make a move coach wise? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. It is tough. All right. Shall we get into some questions?
Sure. So as you type in your questions, Parker and I will get to it as many as we can in the next 10 minutes. Also, we always skip past it now because we're so deeply entrenched in conversation. If you have a don't do that, put that in there. If you want to throw a haiku in there and make sure it's 17 syllables, throw that in there and we'll get to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes.
Also, we are 8 subs away from 800. So if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe hit that button. It helps us out and we do appreciate it. If you're listening in podcast form, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because that also helps us out a ton.
Yes.
All right. Let's see what is coming up here. Again, I haven't been reading much of the comments as we went. Sorry. Any of these that you want to that you've sort of seen over time or that you want to pick out
here? David Limbs is good. Do you trade for picks or players? That depends, I believe, on where you think that the franchise is. If it were me, I would trade for picks because I think we have to. If we don't think we're going to compete for a actual truly compete for the playoffs, despite what we want to do, I think you got to start to restock and you have to actually consider another. It sounds stupid, but you got to consider another rebuild.
Yeah, and the issue is that we sort of have the team at this point, right? The team is kind of what it is. They've pushed all the chips in. They haven't had first round picks the last couple of years. It's like, what's the where's the support coming from? Where's the cavalry, so to speak? I would say if you can get young players, like I'm talking 21, 22-year-olds, who at least have looked decent enough, then that would be the route I would like to go. Fiala at 25 makes a little bit of sense. But I mean, if you can get guys who are 22, 23, who can still sort of grow with this core and sort of try to push it forward and expand that window, because the Canucks sort of went in on this 3-year window that this is year 1 of, it's not looking good. So if you can expand that window, make it a 4 or 5-year window with some extra pieces, supporting pieces that are younger, then that could help out. So that would be my pick.
I like, there's a couple questions about coaching. Edmund suggested that he knows I like Boudreaux. I like Dan Bilesma as well. Is there anyone in the top of your head that you would offer up?
No. Alex Burrows. I don't know. It's tough. There's a lot of reasoning to go to say, well, do you pick someone who's experienced and has done this before? The last 2 Canucks coaches weren't in Willie and Travis. But I don't really like any of the options available that much, right? Like, I'm not in love with any of the guys that are out there. So I don't know. Just pick someone good. I don't care if they've coached before, if they're coaching now, if they've never coached before. Just get a good coach. It's not my job to figure out who the coach should be.
Right.
Just pick someone good.
What do you think? Tiger Burns says, would hiring Babcock lead to a complete circus or a comedy? That name came up on Donnie and Dolly today.
Yeah, it would be I think in a market like Vancouver,
Yeah.
I think it's a bad idea. It's a very, I just don't think people, like him. I think he has a very negative, uh, um, personal opinion on him. Lots of people dislike the way he treated his players, and that's why he lost his job, or not why he lost his job, but a big part of the issues that have arisen with him.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you want someone like that in your room who has like mentally abused players in the past? How's that going to help,
Yeah.
right?
When you put it like that, no.
Patterson's struggling. Okay, well let's mess with his brain. Like that's just I don't know. From all the interviews we've sort of seen on this sort of Babcock redemption tour, I haven't been impressed with any of the answers. Like I haven't been like, oh, he sees the errors in his ways from the past and he's sort of adjusting from it. I don't get that vibe at all. I think it's asking for trouble. Um, I think that's sort of my summary of it. You're asking for trouble. There's no way that that you can't find a better option, right? There's got to be someone out there who is at least maybe a little bit worse as a coach, but he's not going to make your players hate him and make everyone not want to play hockey anymore.
Yes. Sonny, can you get Sonny Joshi's from 1054 about Yannick Hansen? So Yannick Hansen needs to be hired as assistant coach to run the PK. His analysis of our PK was inspiring. Have you heard him talk on Sportsnet and it's a weekly hit?
I listened a little bit to one of the clips, but I haven't listened into too in depth.
Yeah, quite scathing's too strong of a word. Very honest. And Hansen, we loved him. We loved his work ethic. Wasn't the best player, a relatively smart player, but he was a very good secondary player behind the Sedins and Burrows and Kessler. But he's been really, talking pretty strongly about what some of the issues are of the Canucks. Everything from not standing up for Podkolzin, right, when he got leveled in Vegas to PK problems. So I'm not sure if Hansen's angling for a job, but I think he's definitely. I like hearing ex-players talk, especially the ones that aren't afraid of ramifications. And Hansen has been a breath of fresh air for sure.
And this sort of goes to my idea of like why you don't need to hire someone like Mike Babcock, right?
Right.
Because there are so many people who have played the game, who have not played the game, that know hockey so in depth and have a really high hockey IQ. Some of them aren't cut out for coaching, like Wayne Gretzky. But like there's so many smart people that there's no way that the 32 coaches in the NHL right now are the best options out there, right? There's some up and comers, or there's some people who are out of jobs that will be better. The thing is you have to find them, right? And that's really hard to do, right? It's really hard to, do an interview and figure, okay, this guy's going to be a good head coach of a hockey team. But, you think of, there's 30 guys in the AHL who are coaching, and there's, 100 assistant coaches around the NHL that are all sort of shooting for these jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of them are really smart and they really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Guys overseas. Yeah. There's a lot of good coaches for sure. The Seattle asked a good question about 3 minutes ago. It says, which teams have surprised you? Yeah. Or surpassed your expectations? I have a couple. And
the Canucks have surprised me.
And it's easy to say Carolina and Florida because they're at the top of the league, but truly, I think Florida I knew was going to be good. Carolina is nice. Honestly, Calgary, as much as I hate them, that's a surprise. And the Rangers are a team that surprised me as well.
Yeah, Carolina, I'm not surprised they're doing well. I'm surprised they're doing this well, right? Yeah. In the tough division they're in, to be 14-2-1. Excuse me, that's very impressive. I would have expected them to be sort of second or third in that division, but they have been very good. I didn't think the Islanders would be this bad.
Oh yeah.
They have really struggled. And I think most of my surprises are sort of on the negative side, right? The fall from grace from Montreal, going from making the Stanley Cup final last year to being right there in the bottom of the league with the likes of Vancouver and Arizona and Ottawa and Seattle.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not that surprised about Seattle. I didn't think they'd be this bad. I didn't think they'd be good though.
I'm happy
glad
that's kind of bad.
Same. It would have sucked if they were Vegas again. The California team, Anaheim has been a big surprise for me. Yeah. And it's not like they're doing excellent, but they're 10-6-3. They're in a playoff spot. And I think they're probably my biggest surprise so far. And I don't know if it lasts, but they have been really good.
Yeah, California teams have been the punching bag of the Pacific for the last few years,
for a
right?
while.
And then look what happens this year. At
You get
least to
Troy
start off.
Terry, and apparently
Troy
he's the best
Terry.
player of all time.
Zach, yeah, we did talk for about 5 or 6 minutes on Minnesota angling for Miller. So please go back and listen or watch that a bit later. But yeah, we had a good chat about it already. Thank you.
Yeah, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform after the show, and give us a play on there, a download.
Barzell for Petey. Who says no? Who says no?
Barzell's so good. Pedersen's so good.
Maybe they both say no because they both like their players.
I bet that's the real answer.
Yeah,
both of them have had sort of rough starts to the season.
Yeah.
Both teams probably believe in their player more than the other team's player.
Yeah.
I'd say both teams say no to that.
I think that's fair. I'd agree with that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any other ones you want to grab here?
I like Nick's question just from 2 seconds ago. Is it just me, or is Bo Horvat disappointed as a leader this season? What do you think of his leadership, his captaincy?
It's so hard to gauge. And a lot of it just comes from, we don't see behind the scenes, right? You know, you could have looked at Henrik Sedin as the captain and been like, oh, he's not vocal. He's not like out there firing his team up. You know, he's quiet, he's reserved. And, you know, there were people who wrote articles like that, you know, during that tenure. And, but, you know, it's about, I mean, I think a big part of Horvat's game is leading by example, which struggles when he's not playing very well. Right. So you could have a negative thought there. But I mean, I think he's someone who has belief, and I don't know. I like Bo Horvat a lot as a leader, as a player. I haven't really thought of him negatively as a captain.
I'm with you. And you know, and not just because he is my favorite player on the Canucks. But yeah, I don't have a lot of the misgivings that a lot of people do. I know people are frustrated, right? They're disappointed. They're looking for scapegoats or reasons. And you can look at the captain always because you're wondering what's happening. And if you hear about fractures in the room or people aligning with other people, but he seems pretty steady Eddie, pretty confident. I'm not worried about his leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question we're going to take from Jason here, saying opinions on the hypothetical of Green getting fired during the road trip because it's less drama when they're away.
Yeah. Well, there's gonna be drama no matter what, but I can see that there's less distraction or there's less whatever. And we kind of talked about this earlier, Parker. If they go 1-4, 0-5, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But do they do it at the start of the trip? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird. I wonder what the stat is on that. Like where coaches get fired, like how often it's at home versus on like a road trip.
Yeah,
because they could do it. You know, let's say they lose the first 3 games of the road trip, which is fairly reasonable, right? Pittsburgh, Columbus, Boston, like the 3 hardest games of the road trip by far. If they lose those ones pretty bad, and then they were to fire the coach, then I don't know. I could see it. Would it make less drama? I don't think so. I think in this social media world, it's going to be just as big of a deal as if it happened in the middle of a homestand. But it wouldn't surprise me because, then they don't have to face the Vancouver media, right? Jim Benning can do a Zoom press conference from Ottawa or Montreal or whatever, and it's a whole different vibe. But yeah.
That's a good point, though. I was actually thinking that through. The difference would be you'll have 2 or 3 reporters in the room and a dozen on Zoom versus a dozen in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. They won't care whether they're home or away if they think they have to make a change. But as we talked about in the first half of this, we don't think that they're going to make a change yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they were to fire just the coach and then they trot Jim Benning out, I don't know. I just feel like that's a recipe for disaster. But if they fire them both, they're going to put Francesco on the podium? There's no shot. I mean, Francesco hasn't talked to the media in like years.
I think they should put you and me on the podium.
Well, I'm just going to agree with what the reporters are saying. And they're like, hey, you guys are right. This team's not playing good. I'm just up there like with the fake Canucks background, like literally on an official call. Yeah, Jim Benning should be fired.
Can you imagine press conference and the reporter says something, you go, Yes. Next question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeff's like, the team's not performing. Bo Horvat hasn't been playing very well. No points in his last 9 games at this point. I'm like, yes, he's not playing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what am I going to say, right?
So should we try and predict to end off how they're going to do? They only have 2 games this week. Wednesday, Friday.
3.
Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
I think so. Yep. Do you want to predict the whole road trip or just in the first 3 games?
All right, let's do the whole road trip. Let's go big.
1-3-1. They beat Ottawa. They lose to Montreal in overtime. They lose the first 3 games of the road trip. Travis Green is fired after the 3rd game.
Oh, you just laying down the hammer.
Yeah. Next week when we're on this show, he will not be the head coach of the team.
Wow.
That's my prediction.
Clip that, Parker. Clip that with your nice hair. Clip it. No, I mean, don't.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's my guess.
We should have a bet. Loser has to cut his hair. No, I'm just kidding.
I need a haircut. But I'm not
and mine, there's no difference. Okay. So you're going 1-3-1. I was going to go 2-2-1, but I'm going to, just for the heck of it, and just because I want to be bold, I'm going 3-1-1.
Who do they beat?
They take the 2 Canadian teams.
Yep.
And they take the game you wouldn't expect. So Columbus. So they lose Pittsburgh. They get a point from one of Boston or Pittsburgh. They beat Columbus, Ottawa, Montreal. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want it to happen.
That's a good take. I love it.
So I have 7 points. You have 3.
I have 3, and something changes. And my guess is green. Let's see. We'll find out. All right. Is it time to wrap up? I think it's time to wrap up. I think, like I said in the title, the Canucks are cursed. It has been pain, for forever, and it will continue to be pain. So strap in, make sure you're subscribed to Canucks After Dark. Make sure you're subscribed to both of our YouTube channels. I'm ParkersPucks. He's Canuck Clay. You can follow us on Twitter. You guys know the whole spiel at this point. Everything's linked in the description. Links to if you missed any part of the show, you can rewind to the beginning here on YouTube. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform, all of that good stuff. Clay, any parting words?
I'm just excited for a massive show next week, no matter what happens. I think it's just gonna be I just have a feeling it's gonna be a massive show.
It's gonna be exciting. The Canucks play next Monday, don't they?
Wednesday,
the game against Montreal.
Friday.
You go back to back. It's Sunday, Monday.
Really?
So they play Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday against the Bruins at 4, and then Monday against the Habs at 4:30.
Oh, I thought
which
Montreal,
means we'll have 4
yeah.
games to talk about.
Wow. And that Monday game, that's back east, so we have time to decompress and then come on here. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Hopefully the week goes well, whichever you define well as. And with that, we will talk to you next Monday.